Let me very briefly give you a quick overview. Today, we have been joined by Mr. Ali Nawaz, who's currently working as the Director General of Private Power Infrastructure Board, PPIB, the Ministry of Energy Power Division. So, thank you so much for joining us, sir. And also be chairing our panel today. Secondly, we have also been joined by Ms. Fariha Idris, who's currently working as a fellow at Candiolo Cancer Institute from Italy. We do have Dr. Majid Ali, who's a director and project lead policy. Dr. Majid from USP Case NUST, Mr. Azal Lashari from Policy Research Institute for Equitable Development, and will also very shortly be joined by Mr. Basit Ghori, who's currently working as a manager research and networks at the Renewables First. So we'll be introducing them, and I'll also be requesting each of the panelists to also sort of give a brief overview of what they're working while they're speaking as well. So before again going to the technical discussion, let me just really set some brief housekeeping rules that today's event is being live streamed on X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'll be requesting our speakers to switch on their cameras while they're speaking, especially if the network allows them to do so without any disruptions. And the roundtable is also being recorded and it will be available online as well. And you're all feel free to revisit the discussion later and post it, share it within your networks as well. And most important point is that today we do have the relevant individual experts from different academia, the civil society, and let's keep it more in a roundtable format in which we can also have a lot of questions coming from the participants to the esteemed panel that we have both in person and online. If you have any things to add, because a lot of you have been developing these different financing models around the social cost of different fossil fuel plants, and so perhaps having more interacted and back and forth discussion would also be very substantially important for today's discussion as well. And for any of our online participants, if you wish to speak, please click on the raise hand tab, and then you can sort of ask your questions by directly speaking as well. And you can also sort of put them down in the chat or Q&A box, and we'll pick it up from there. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Let me just set a very brief context, after which I'll be initially requesting esteemed panel to sort of shed their light. That when we actually talk about the whole theme today at hand, that is, again, the social cost of the coal or the social cost of any of the fossil fuel projects, let's sort of initially discuss the three aspects that we have. Firstly, when we actually talk about the coal, coal has been pictured as, and also is also a very important component when we talk about Pakistan's energy security. No doubt that it is an extremely useful resource. Just perhaps we'll also discuss what is the status today. But when we talk about some of the very global economies, a lot of economies have built upon the use of coal. Pakistan also have very large reserves of coal. But the point actually, or the debate actually comes around, is when we sort of start thinking around the increasingly changing narrative around the renewable energy transition, the renewable energy development, and all the climate action need. We have been seeing that even in the last session of the Conference of Parties, the COP28, we also see a lot of themes coming around, even the global community sort of agreeing on tripling of the renewable energy. And it was the first time, we have also sort of coined the word on transitioning away from fossil fuels. So in the whole light of that, we really need to understand how should Pakistan sort of position itself in the changing environment, because we fully understand that definitely Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable country to the climate impacts as well. And also, definitely we'll also be discussing what are the pros and cons of reliance on coal. But at the same time, we also need to sort of understand what has been its impacts, perhaps again, both positive and negative on the local community, talking about the third region, talking about the regions as well, how it has actually impacted those. And if there are any other social costs associated that are currently not being reflected either the planning process and either the tariff determination process, and something where we perhaps need to address the planning process or these price determination processes as well. The third thing that sort of again comes up is the grid decarbonization, because one of the very key trends that we need to sort of watch is the industrial decarbonization trend, and how the industries need to sort of respond to this changing dynamic, because we all know that very shortly, Pakistan is in, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is there. And by 2027, it's again, the textile is going to be a sort of a part of that Textile is again one of our export oriented sector. And if we look at the national grid of Pakistan, so it is more carbon intensive when we actually sort of compare it to the national grid of European Union. So once the any of the export compliances from the European Union sort of comes in, as the industry, the export oriented industry, that's again going to face a lot of challenges. And how we address those challenges again, we need to understand how do we do about that as well. So these are again some of the very basic, some of the few questions which we'll be addressing, but at the same time, you also need to sort of understand how important is coal to the energy sector of Pakistan, and how do we actually plan for its perhaps a mid-term or short-term or perhaps a long-term transition plan as well. So with this, I think let us come to the esteemed panel that we actually had. Alisa will be requesting, before going to you, we'll actually be requesting some of our panelists sitting over here to sort of highlight what their perspective is. So it'll also give you a sort of a stance coming from the civil society, coming from in academia, to sort of respond to those as well. So let me first, I think, initially request Mr. Azhar Lashari Saab from Policy Research Institute of Equitable Development that, sir, you have been again looking at Thar coal for some quite a long time. You have done a lot of, Pride has done a lot of research around that, especially when we talk about the external cost, or generally the cost of coal, what it has impacts on the local community as well. So if you can sort of highlight some of the most significant social and environmental challenges in Pakistan, or the externalities that are linked to coal projects, and how do they impact the local communities, and if you think there are any regulatory measures currently in place to address those externalities and social costs. So with this, thank you so much for joining us. It's over to
you. Thank you, Beth. When we talk about the Thar coal, we should keep in mind that the local communities who are going to be directly impacted by that coal power interventions, the most significant impact upon their lives is the process of land acquisition for coal mining and thermal power generation in Thar region. The local communities of Thar are overwhelmingly dependent upon the land. And if we look at the types of land that is available to them, that land is of three types. First is survey land, that is, we can say that is a privately owned land. Second category of land is that is called yaksala, and it is a kind of a land given on lease to the local communities for some period of time. And the third category is the gaucher, or the common grazing land. So the people in Thar are mostly landless communities, particularly from the scheduled Hindu castes. They are landless. When the government or the companies acquire land for mining purposes, they are giving just compensation against just the privately owned land, whereas the compensation against yaksala and gaucher is not available to them. So the local communities are overwhelmingly dependent upon rain-fed agriculture and livestock rearing. So when the land is acquired from them, the people are left with no other option for earning their livelihood. They are physically, on the one hand, they are physically dislocated, while on the other hand, there are very severe sort of livelihood disruptions for them. So that is the most significant impact of coal-related interventions in Thar region. On the other hand, in the process of coal mining and in the process of thermal power generation, a lot of wastewater is generated. You know that Thar is an arid area where water is already very short, or says that is a water scarce area. People are mostly dependent upon groundwater. So in the process of coal mining is extensively dependent upon dewatering that is necessary to keep the coal mines intact. So a lot of wastewater is generated in coal mining process, and also in the process of thermal power generation, a lot of wastewater is generated. So that wastewater has to be uh, dumped somewhere. The companies have built three sorts of areas where this wastewater is being disposed of. One is uh, I mean that is called dam, but it is not dam. It is basically wastewater ponds where this wastewater is being discharged into. One is one such pond is located at Dukarcho that has been recently built, whereas there is an older one that is located at Gorano. So in these depression areas, in these low-lying areas, these ponds have been built, and the government hasn't uh, arranged any such geomembrane or the arrangements to stop the seepage from these wastewater ponds. So the groundwater is fastly being polluted and contaminated due to seepage from these uh, wastewater ponds. The second such place where wastewater is being dumped is Meghejo third village, where a re-injection plant, wastewater re-injection plant has been installed, and from that plant, wastewater is being re-injected into third aquifer in third region. And the third way of say disposing of this wastewater is that is not designated or the formal process of uh, discharging wastewater. The companies are discharging wastewater in a very irresponsible and in a very waywardly manner into the farmlands and the grazing lands of people. So there has been a lot of mortalities of animal or the livestock due to this wastewater uh, discharge. And yes, I mean that water is the major environmental issue. In some villages, the water level of groundwater has risen due to seepage from the wastewater ponds, whereas in certain areas which are located near to the coal mines, and due to the extensive dewatering of coal mines, the water level is going fast lower. So these are the issues, environmental and social issues, major issues. There are a lot of issues, but these two issues are the major issues which the local communities have been facing since the inception of these coal power projects.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Zasab, for highlighting the challenges, including the wastewater, the livestock, and the very key areas you mentioned, and we'll definitely take this into further discussion. So, with this, let me come to Dr. Majid from USPK's National University of Science and Technology. So, based on your experience, I mean, do you also sort of see if I mean, what are some of the key policy changes that needs to address the social and environmental costs that are associated with the coal reliance in Pakistan, and how can sort of, I mean, coming from academia, how can research and data on the externalities of coal be effectively integrated into the policy making to ensure more sustainable energy practices? Also, if you want to sort of also like to respond to some of the challenges that Azasab has also mentioned. And at the same time, if I can actually request to also sort of respond to what role do technological innovations play in mitigating the negative externalities of coal? Are there any specific technologies or practices that sort of show promise in reducing the social and environmental impacts? So with this, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Beth. I think we have asked a very relevant questions. First, before that, I want to highlight about the social cost, just give you an overview about the coal. Currently, Pakistan have coal mix in the energy sector is around 13%, and which is up to increase up to in 2021 it was 13%, and now it's increased up to 16%. And if we can talk about the government plan is to convert uh, imported coal power plants to local power plants. So when we talk about that, if we shift from the imported coal power to local power plant, then it means we have to increase the mining. So there are two challenges in the way. One is the mining sector, and the second one is the energy generation. And both have the consequences, because if you do the mining, you are damaging, you're actually depleting the water resources. There are some challenges for the land deforestation, water contaminations, just others have mentioned, and also the air pollutions. So when we do mining, so there are actually in third coal, Pakistan have around 175 deposits of third coal. So what happened? There are three different layers of aquifers. So what we are doing is that we are damaging all three aquifers and depleting the water resources. So if we run a power plant, like there are four third power plants which are working, so they need water for those power plants. So what they do, they can take the water from the LBOD canal, and they are getting the water from the underground water. So these are two things which are actually the major concerns के जो power plants हैं उनमें पानी जो चाहिए और उनको run करने के लिए they have a huge amount of water. Another aspect is that the pollution. So what are the consequences, because they are also emitting particulate matters, sulfur dioxide, noxes, carbon dioxide emissions. Just as mentioned in the report that we have to reduce the carbon emissions from the power plant, so that we can reduce the target of 1.5 degrees C, the global warming, and we have to meet that target. So regarding both of the aspects, there are challenges for the mining industry and for the power plant industry. And what the government plan is to convert all these imported coal power plants toward the local coal. So what happened there is a huge flow of the coal supply of the power plants. And what happened, you have to transport the coal from the third coal to the power plants. So it's an addition for the environmental concerns. So if we can talk about how we can see all these things. So first is the assessment, how we can see the health impact assessment. So in health impact assessment, we see how the air pollution and what are the ranges of the emission profile and what are the water quality. So in the water quality, in third is actually the water is saline water. The TDS level is much higher, which is not drinkable water. And second one is the social impact assessment. In social impact assessment, there is, if we can do, there is a community's displacement from them. They can impact the livelihood. They also the impact on the cultural heritage as well. And the third important one is the environmental impact assessment, in which we have to see the air, water, plus land degradation, the biodiversity of the life in the third coal, in third region. So these are the three major important assessments which are required for the whether third coal, if we use the third coal in the industries and the local power plants, which is more reliable for the economy, or it can impact the local community as well. So we have to take the local stakeholders on board. We have to take the local community on board, so we can see how their life is improving, or they are facing more challenges. So we have to do the survey analysis. We have to conduct whether their poverty rate is higher or is decreased due to this mining at power plants, and their quality life is increased, or what is the impact on that, what is the infant mortality rate on them. We have to see all those survey analysis and see whether the economy associated with this social aspect of the third coal linked with this generation. So the government plan is to shift all those local imported power plants local, because the first thing is the capacity payments, and they are actually around $100 million investing on these power plants to convert those into the local coal. So first thing government is planning to see the solution for the capacity payment. Second one is the industry faces the challenges because the imported fuel is expensive, and they are facing the international burden and also the other impact. So if we convert on this local coal, third coal, we have to see all this the social impact, which we have to analyze the health impact assessment. We have to see the social impact. We have to see the environmental impact. Second, you have asked the second question, which is also very relevant. We have how we see the technologies. So if we talk about the technologies, we have to upgrade the mining technologies. Okay, we have to see how we can how to make not to make the water contaminated. Then we have to use the advanced power system. So they are in third coal, mostly power plants are subcritical. They are mostly CB circularly fluidized bed reactors. And then we have to see the use the emission control devices, in which we have used the electrostatic precipitators, and we can use the flue gas desulfurizations, which can capture the sulfur dioxide. So we have to see those technologies as well. Another aspect is that we have to use the another thing is to upgrade is the clean coal technology concept, in which we can convert the coal into gas, and we can convert the coal into liquid. So both these technologies have their pros and cons, and in those technologies we can reduce the emission profile in the environment. And the last point is that we have to use the coal. The coal washing is an addition, and we have to integrate the renewable energy integration with this third coal power plant, so that we have to see the technology plus the renewable make some change for the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Majid, for highlighting this. We will be taking another question just from your discussion that perhaps the later the technologies that you mentioned, definitely sulfurization, the use of CTG and CTL. So, I mean, definitely they do come with some additional costs. So, is it again the whole point is that is it sort of worth it investing in these technologies while we do have perhaps other sources such as wind or solar available with us? So perhaps you can respond to this a bit later. Like, definitely fully understand that the government is actually working on these. In it is also again one of the commitment. It is also again mentioned under the national determined contributions of Pakistan, but because again the electricity pricing is one of the major issues, so perhaps we need to come up with sort of these financial models which sort of gives us an analysis, doing a cost benefit analysis of perhaps which of these potential options are much better to go forward with. So again, thank you so much for your interventions. And again, before again coming to Ali Saab, let me invite Basit. Basit, you have been dealing with the power generation aspect first a lot. So if you can sort of highlight that when we're actually talking about the coal reliance or external cost of coal, uh, how do that sort of play out? And also perhaps if you can shed some light on the industries also again needs, I mean, the textile sector do need the cleaning of the sort of the grid, the decarbonization of the grid as well. So yes, with over to you, Basit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abed, for inviting me. Ajay, I think coming back to the initial context setting that you did, and you kind of answered a little bit to your own questions about, you're not talking about whether it's more economical after including the social cost, whether you should have a coal plant or not. You're just having this conversation because right now solar and wind are cheaper. That's it. Right, whether you take into imported or local coal, that's the way to go. So why you want to get into additional stranded assets in the first place? So I think that's one of the key questions. And then secondly, you talked about the industries and how do we look at we have to decide right now. We have to take long-term decisions. We have to decide what we will be in next 10, 20 years. And if we look into that, we have to realize that our critical issues even for the export industry is the carbon footprint of our grid, right? So we talk about CBAM. I understand there are many sectors in CBAM which are not, Pakistan doesn't even export, right? So you're talking about cement, steel. But if you're looking into textile, which is currently not part of CBAM, you see the implicit demand for the textile industry to get cleaner is much more than even CBAM. CBAM gonna kick in 2030, but right now you have all these brands that are talking about what their carbon footprint is. And in Pakistan, if there is an industry, they take electricity from the grid, they don't have a way to show that what their carbon footprint is. So how they are going to the exports are affected. And that's why you see textile industry and such conglomerates being so aggressive in terms of adopting this captive solar and other industries. So I think what we need to do as a nation is to kind of sit down and have a realignment of where we want to be next in next 10, 20 years. What you can't do is basically say that we have climate goals and say that we need climate finance when we go to COP. Okay, this is a conditional financing we need, and then on the other hand, keep your mining operations active and go for new mining operations, have new stranded assets. per se have new investments with. And then you have seen already, even countries like China, which have the biggest footprint on coal, they have transitioned away. They have set their direction right in terms of not investing anymore in these coal power projects. So I think it's high time that we also decide that where we want to be in next 10, 20 years, and perhaps based on that, we will go ahead. So I also wanted to talk a little bit, expand on the Majid Saab's point on the technologies that are available at a project level. Look, when we are talking about coal, we have to realize where we talk about these innovative technologies that can help reduce. So there are three places where you're talking, right? You have waste coming in as a water waste, that is from the the FGDs or the boilers. Then you have solid waste. If you put into these technologies, they also have a byproduct, right? So if you're putting in electrostatic precipitator that has a fly ash component to it, where does that fly ash go? Ideally, there are researchers that can go to cement industry and all that, but how much does it actually go in Pakistan? So how is it being dumped in different sites? So I think that is also something to be managed. And even after all this, we talk about the major footprint is the emission portfolio, right? Doesn't matter how much ESP and FGD's effectivity is, that can only control SOx, NOx, and particulate matter, but not the carbon dioxide, which is the major important parameter for us. So how do you control that? You talked about the only technologies that you have available are CCS, which are currently not commercially viable despite so many years. We haven't seen them taken off, and the costs associated and the land requirement for them are huge. So all in essence, if we try to look into the solutions of trying to make this coal clean, um, uh, you know, there's much more effort, much more long-term expectations, unrealistic expectations that needs to take place for them to become actually clean. And rather than that, on the other hand, we see we have very economical and viable solar and wind projects available. So I think the question comes down to is that why go for this difficult solution and long term, which may or may not work out and which even have a higher cost, and why not go towards the cheaper alternatives that are available? So I think that's a critical question, and we have to set this direction right as we are entering into different phases of new projects. And when we're talking about repurposing, there's a lot of investment. 100 million US dollars he was talking about. You can actually install a wind power plant cheaper than that. I think it's about if you go about 50 megawatts, about 60 to 70 billion. And then you have a lot of cost that you're putting into transportation as well, right? So whether you want to have more stranded investments in coming years, or you want to change your alignment and direction to kind of get the plants online that will be utilized in longer term as well. So I think it's all about setting the strategy right. The costing aspects, definitely we can do it, we can analyze it, but we have to realize that even without incorporating the social cost, the answer is really simple, to be honest, that solar and wind are cheaper right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Basit. I think that's a lot of very good interventions and something where we do fully understand to again go with the most cost-effective option. Also, sort of just mention that again, now it's time and it's not just about the perhaps environment. It's that we need to, even if we look at the economic side, we need to do this realignment. So with this, I mean, let me come to Ali Nawaz Saab from the Private Power Infrastructure Board. So you have been listening to the discussion and the sort of the points highlighted by a lot of our experts today. I'll be coming to Ms. Faria later as well. But how do you see, I mean, if you would initially like to sort of respond to those, because definitely PPIB has a very strong mandate. The coal, especially the use of local coal, is again one of the priorities with the government as well. So when we actually talk about the social and these external cost of the coal dependence in Pakistan, how do perhaps what are your perspectives on that? And if you can sort of provide if there are any strengths and limitations of the current regulatory and the policy frameworks in addressing these costs of coal, and how can we actually sort of support you in making any of these things happen? So, and your general response to these debate as well. So thank you so much once again, sir, for joining us. Yes.
Thank you, Ubay sir. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Director General Thermal in Private Power and Infrastructure Board since last 10 years. So I took this initiative for the development of third and imported coal-based power projects in 2015 and become successful to develop around 7,000 megawatt coal power projects in Pakistan. So what is the current thermal mix, the energy mix of Pakistan? So currently we are producing electricity 60% based on thermal sources, especially the fossil fuels, and almost 40% from the renewable sources, including hydro, solar, wind. Now we are going to change the energy mix, and by 2030, we will reverse it. 60% energy would be generated from renewable resources, including hydro, solar, wind, and only 40% generation would be based on the thermal resources. So that may include mostly nuclear and coal. What previously has been practiced in Pakistan? Previously, we normally import RFO, HSD, and gas. The RLNG. At that time, we had two options to meet the energy requirements of the country that should be affordable. At that time, RFO was too costly, RLNG was too costly. Coal was the only source which was cheaper and economically affordable option for us. Why we developed imported coal power projects? Because at that time, in 2015, Thar was not explored. So we had one option that immediately we go for cheaper energy, and thereafter, once Thar coal is explored and coal is available, then we may convert these power plants to Thar coal. Simultaneously, we explored the option and we started the process of installation of Thar coal-based power projects and mine development. So in 2015, we simultaneously started 2,600 megawatt Thar coal-based power plants at mine mouth in Thar. One of my friends informed, most probably Madisab is informed here that these are subcritical technology based. No, it is not subcritical. Initially, in the first phase, two projects were based on subcritical technology because at that time, we are not sure that what would be the quality and what impurities would be available in the Thar coal. So we should install such a technology that Thar coal can be successfully utilized. So in the first phase, we developed agro power and thermal tail projects based on supercritical technology, and thereafter we developed another power plant of 1320 megawatt developed by Shanghai Electric, very well known international guru over there, and that is based on supercritical technology, wherein electrostatic precipitators and flue gas desulfurization units are already installed over there. And these are not only supercritical, but these are ultra supercritical technology unit, two units. So even in India, no ultra supercritical technology based plants are operating, but we have developed this and we paid extra cost for these. Again, if we say why we are using coal, so what are the international figures? Currently, 6 billion tons coal is being produced throughout the world, and only 1 billion ton annually is transported outside the countries, producing countries, and be traded outside the boundaries of those countries. That means 5 billion ton coal is being utilized currently in the world. In those share of Pakistan, currently we are only producing 14 million tons per annum, while world is producing 6 billion tons coal. That is most probably major chunk is being utilized in power generation. So again, we are very much conscious about the environment, and we are taking care of it. That's why we installed all these imported coal as well as local coal, Thar coal based power plants based on super and ultra super critical technologies. and we have already installed FGDs, and we are taking care of all environmental impacts. Nevertheless, as mentioned by my friend Azhar Lashari Saab, that there are two issues of rainwater. So no doubt there is a disturbance once mine is developed, but we very carefully address these issues. Once the mining land is reclaimed, all the bottom ash, our colleague Boris Saab also highlighted that how waste is being utilized. So the bottom ash produced from these plants would be mixed in the top layer of the reclaimed land utilized for the mining. And that land would become a very fertile land, and that would be best for agriculture purposes, because the bottom ash contains almost maximum portion of the gypsum. When gypsum is mixed with the sand, then it becomes a very fertile, and its fertility will be increased. So that land, once reclaimed, would be utilized for agriculture purpose. Again, water. So we are very much careful, and for that, SEPA is the responsible agency. They are monitoring it, and Pakistan Environmental Protection Agency as well. It is also monitoring all these impacts. So these are being addressed and continuously monitored, and we are getting monthly reports from these plants and mines. Actually, we are responsible for power generation plants, so we are getting reports, and regarding mines, provincial governments are monitoring it. So these are being addressed. And regarding availability of water for animals and people living there, the companies has been asked to develop RO plants for the provision of drinking water for people, animals, and other living over there. So these are properly addressed. If there is any issue, then SEPA is monitoring, since Environmental Protection Agency is continuously monitoring for it. Regarding impact on socio-economic life of the 30 people, that's very much visible over there. If anybody has visited Thar recently, there is a remarkable change 10 years back, what was there and what is Thar now. Previously, 10 years back, there was no road, there was no hospital, and in the media, there were the rumors that 30 children has been died because of this, that, and because of unavailability of infrastructure. But now the best road is available there, airport is there, best hospitals are there. Even in the third NED universities, one branch is working over there, one engineering university is over there. So there is a paradigm shift because of these plants and mining companies. I believe that their lives have been changed. Actually, 1980s, I was studying in engineering university. At that time, only 30 were involved in the cooking business. So they come out of the third and in Hyderabad and even Karachi and big cities. People used to do very small businesses, and mostly they were involved in the cooking businesses. Now they are there and getting their livelihood from these companies, power generation and mining companies, and they are very happy over there. As I believe, and I visited and I witnessed the situation. Again, regarding environmental issues, SEPA is taking care. Regarding power generation, previously, share of coal was 10%. So last year, its share has been a little bit reduced because of some reasons. Now we are trying to increase it. And regarding the pollution and technologies, I have already discussed the policy matters, pollution issues that ESP and FGDs are available. And one thing, very important thing is that we are not following the Pakistan environmental standards. We are following World Bank and IFC standards. So all these investments has been made as per the stringent policies of the World Bank, because these power generation plants based on imported coal as well as local coal are following the World Bank standards that are too stringent as compared to our local Pakistan and CPAR provincial environmental protection agencies standards. Again, Government of Pakistan, especially PPIB board, has imposed moratorium over the further development of any imported coal power projects. So we are not developing any further imported coal-based power generation project. However, we are going to shift these already installed imported coal power projects on third coal. Why we are going? Because every country has its own aspects, because currently our electricity is unaffordable. Because if we follow the thermal based generation based on RLNG, RFO, or any other, because gas, our local gas is not available. Its reserves has been started depleting, and no gas would be available in the next 2-3 years. So the only remaining source is local coal with us. We have to rely on it, and definitely there are two options and two benefits of using third coal. Number one, we can save our foreign exchange. Because of these 3 power plants, we are almost using $1.2 billion for the import of coal. So we will save $1.2 billion annually by converting these 3 power plants on third coal. Number second, very lucrative and very important factor is the price of electricity so generated from the third coal. So currently, the price fuel cost component of third coal based power generation is around 5.8 rupees per kilowatt hour. If we compare with, we are generating almost, we will save rupees 12 to 15 per every unit of the electricity generated from coal. Again, because of unaffordable, and we have only option of third to utilize it, and by utilizing third, definitely we will reduce the prices of electricity, and our economy start. I think our economy can be revived by implementation of
Thank you. Thank you so much.
based power generation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much,
Other
Ali.
avenues as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you so much for the interventions, and fully understand. I mean, the point that you've made, we also do understand why there is this reliance. But I'll be also requesting our panelists over here as well as online to also sort of that we also now do have the stance of coming from the public sector as well. So again, but before going to Azhar, let me request Ms. Fariha, and perhaps now we can sort of discuss more towards what is perhaps the potentially some of the way forwards and how to now exactly go about it as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Ms. Fariha, for joining us. So I think firstly, perhaps you have been dealing with the health sector and health conditions of the laborers that have been working. So perhaps if you can initially very briefly highlight how do these health conditions of the laborers working in the coal industry is impacted, and again, more perhaps talking towards a solution that what integrated approach can be implemented to address these challenges, perhaps a bit comprehensively. And again, if you do think if there are any strengths and limitations of current policies and regulations or the safeguards that are in place or that needs to sort of come in, if Pakistan is again to sort of still keep on relying on this source for some time long. And if you have any key policy recommendations or key actions, Mark, that you would like to sort of highlight. So yes, over to you, Ms. Fariha. Sorry, you muted. You're on mute.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me. for this panel discussion. I have been basically working on some of the coal mines in the Punjab region for 3 or 4 years for my research in the past. And what we have seen over there is a completely different picture. What I can relate to is the most of the miners that have been working there in those regions, they were not very well paid. So the first thing is the stress that they are dealing with on the daily basis, because most of them are the migrant workers that have been migrated from different regions in the KPK or even from across the border. Because we have been personally interviewed them for their social status, for their economic status in those areas. Secondly, the second part is that they are having a challenge of even having a proper setup over there for their daily living. Also, they are not living in a very good condition. They have been paid low over there, and all these factors are responsible for decreasing their health quality. Most of the miners, the age bracket of the miners that I have been seeing over there is from like 15 years to almost 65 years. This is the age bracket of the workers over there, and they have been facing the challenges of air pollution directly, because most of them were having the problem of tuberculosis. There is a very high incidence of hepatitis over there due to contaminated water that they have already discussed in the discussion. That neither this contaminated water is not only responsible for decreasing the groundwater quality, but it is also directly impacting the health quality of miners over there. So what we have seen is that most of them were having the liver issues, the hepatitis. They have having the respiratory issues. There is also an incidence of black lung disease over there in some people in those miners. And the other thing that I have seen over there is that most of them were not the local workers over there, and they have their families that have been coming here for 6 months, 8 months, a father, then the son, and then the brother of the father or something like this, and they have been working there for 8 or 9 months continuously, and then they take a wage of that collective wage, and then they go back to their home place for 2 or 3 months, and then they come back. So this is the working condition of miner over there. They have a very small room in which almost 6 or 7 miners were living over there. They were not having proper cooking utensils. And what I find is that the main reason is that government owned maybe 5 or 10% of the mines over there. Most of the mines over there are privately owned. They are privately owned by some people who will take the tender for 1 year or maybe 6 months or 2 years, and they are not taking the responsibility of the health of miners. The problem there is that there is no regulation of no work safety, no regulation body. Although we have in our labor rules, the health of miners should be considered. There should be only 60 working hours in a week for a miner. There should be 1 weekly leave for a miner or something like this. But on the ground, the condition is like they have been facing the incidents of mine blast every day, maybe. People have been injured with the because most of the mines are underground, so there are a lot of injury issues over there. And what I feel is that there should be a proper regulation. There should be a proper regulatory body on which miners should be getting the health benefits, at least initial health benefits for the daily. Maybe they could have a screening for a month or a 2 month for their general health constraints, or maybe they could have a proper setup regarding the insurance of health. Because what I see over there is that if they are given a private owner is given a mine for 1 year, and he is going to hire you on the peshgi amount of maybe a 1 lakh or 2 lakh for 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, or maybe 3 lakh. I don't exactly know the amount of wage, because when I discussed with 2 or 3 people over there, the miners, most of them have taken a loan from the person with whom they are working in a mine. So for me, the main problem is the health of the people, the local people, or the health of the worker who is currently working in the mine. When you are considering his health as an important factor, then after that you have to be considering his well-being also. When you talk about the shifting of energy to some renewable energy resources, to shift it from the coal to solar energy or something like a wind energy, you must be conscious about the fact that you have to be responsible for generating the job opportunities for the workers who have been working over there. Maybe one thing that initially we can do is, if we are planning to take the imported coal mines from to the local level, what we can do here is we can have a proper regulatory body where miners can get their registrations. They have the proper health checkups over there. They have the insurances. They can be monitored with that database. Maybe you could have a database in which you know which of your workers have been working over there, because the problem is, if somebody dies, there is no proper registration over there. So these are all the social and health conditions of the actual workers who have been working over there. The environmental cost is, like as it is already discussed, the coal dust is a main challenge for all the people. Either they are the workers over there or they are the miners over there. The coal dust, the small particulate matter that has been polluting the air for many, many years with mining operations. The second challenge is the acid mine drainage, because it is responsible for increasing the toxicity of groundwater. It is not only increasing the toxicity of groundwater, but it is also responsible for bioaccumulation of those metals in the crops that have been cultivated in those areas. So you have to rethink of this, that if you are going to continue the coal processing or the coal mining industry in the particular region, you have to see the cost. The cost is not only the economic cost, you have to think about the environmental cost as well. So what I see is that, maybe I agree with some of the panelists, is that if you have to shift it to the local bodies or local coal bodies or the government, you have to consider that you should not be increasing your investment in this sector anymore. For me, you have to shift on the solar energy. You can shift on the renewable energy resources like wind energy or solar energy, because if you are going to be continuously investing in the coal energy, then eventually you would not be ending the green emissions, you would not be ending the carbon emissions for at least 10-20 years if you are going to invest in the same sector again and again and again. And the person who is directly working in the mine, the miners, the laborers, they are not taking the incentive of this, whatever we are doing on the whole. They have been paid less since now. They have not been having a very high wage, or we cannot see a very high markup increase in the life status of the miner who have been working in the mines. So it has a social cost, it has a personal cost also. So for me, I think it is better option to shift towards the other energy options. And if we have to continue to be with this, at least we can limitize it to the level that we are right now. But we have to increase the social status, or we have to increase or improvise the health status of the people who have been actually working inside.
Yes.
Because it's
Yes, sure. Thank you. Ms. Priya, if you can just sort of give, if you have any final recommendations, so we can just sort of take questions from our people sitting over here as well.
Sir, for me, the final recommendation, what I can see is that if you have to work in the coal industry, just you have to focus on some of the initial thing that we have been talking, like coal liquefaction or gasification. If you are going to shift on that, you have to marginalize the price, because if you are going towards the liquefaction or gasification, it will be increasing the price of energy. That is already, I think, very, very high in electricity generation. So for me, the final recommendation is you have to shift towards the solar energy and wind energy instead of investing in the coal energy right now.
Yes, sure.
Because
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. So before again going back to the panel, let me just take if we have any questions. And we do have some that I've received online, but perhaps first from the in-person participants sitting over here, if they want to sort of add on to anything. Yeah, that's good. And then I'll be coming to Azizah. Yes, please.
Thank you, Beth. I'm Saliha Qureshi, and I'm working in STPI under Industrial Decarbonization Program. So, I heard a couple of points from the speakers and online speakers and in person. So they're words that, looks like a Mentimeter approach, and we don't know what to prioritize first. there's a lot of concerns on the community rights, property rights, why we are going to the coal. And also, does a common people, a common person in a community knew that what is the social cost, why this plant is there, and what's the effect or impacts on them? So we are blankless on that. We're sitting here and discuss a few things. Firstly, we have to understand the social cost first, then environmental cost or economic cost. Because when the economic cost is addressed, then you can actually think over the environmental cost, and then the social cost comes next. And after that, I would say that there are a lot of debate on the miners, the extraction of water from the ground water level. So because there are in Pakistan, when we are talking about different policies, and the policies are in place, but their implementation is the issue. So there are not certain property rights for the people. If they knew that this is going to happen in our community, they would challenge the government, the industry, that why is these things are happening there. First thing is the awareness. Then there is the capacity building. They should knew that what's going on. Then secondly, the miners issue, which ma'am has addressed, that they have the health issues. Do they have proper health cards or health system for that, to address that? So there are a lot of questions and lot of concerns which comes up as a general people in mind, that what to prioritize first. We are going where, and we are like in a way that we don't have what to comes first and second and third. So I believe that we need to prioritize things, that what should be comes first, and then address them properly. And finally, I would say that how we can actually address the issues of communities, how we can address the property rights, how does it, we have such sort of policies that can address these, or we are clueless on that. So I think these are a couple of comments or concerns that you want to add on in that. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Saleha. Well noted point. And let me just sort of read a couple from the online link that we have actually received. So I believe the first question was that does any of the research institutes have this any of the economic or the financial model that they can sort of add on to some of the values from, if they have any shadow sort of mechanism or a plan that can sort of highlight what exactly in quantified form this social cost is. So yes, if I believe SDPI was conducting a study, we were sort of initially supposed to reach some of the preliminary findings in this consultation, but I believe it's a bit delayed, but we'll definitely come back to you with those models. And let me again firstly come back to Azhar Saab to sort of also respond to some of the points and his reflections on different perspectives raised by the speakers. And again, if he wants to sort of also recommend that what exactly should be Pakistan's course of action going forward as well. Yes.
Thank you, Ved. 2 or 3 points which I previously missed, and I want to reiterate those points. The first thing is that when I was talking about the contamination of water, I didn't talk about the water being used, fresh water being used for running these thermal power plants. That water is not being taken from LBOD. That is factually not correct. In fact, that water is being taken from Indus water system through Nara Canal. A line channel has been built from Farshmakhi on that Nara Canal point to Nabisar. There is a kind of reservoir built over there in Nabisar. There, that water is first filtered and then transported through a pipeline to Vijihar in Thar region. So the local people of, say, the local farmers who are dependent upon the Nara Canal, this extraction of water for coal power plants is not legal, and according to them, their rights are being violated due to extraction of canal water for this coal power, thermal power generation. So that is the point which I missed previously. Secondly, to respond to Ali Nawaz Sahab, who was saying that Shinghai electric power plant is ultra super critical or the ultra critical, that is not factually correct. That plant is also a subcritical plant. And secondly, he was saying that there is a government regulatory authority, namely SEPA, which is taking care of or overseeing the status of water in Thar. I think we have found that there is a lot of clash of interest because the Sindh government is a shareholder in Sindh coal mines,
Yes.
and SEPA is also a government authority. So when a government is having stakes, having serious financial interest in Thar coal mining, how can it regulate the environmental conditions? Anyone can go in Thar and see that how the water is being degraded over there due to these mining, coal mining, and thermal power processes. That is very much open, and one doesn't need to be a scientist to see whether such kind of environmental degradation is taking place. You can go anywhere and see that. When I say anywhere, I mean you can go to these designated places, at least in Godano and Dukarcho and Meghejotar. You can see how the local people have been facing water related issues, particularly due to discharge of this wastewater and due to dewatering of coal mines in mining area. Thirdly, and finally, what Ma'am Dr. Saleh was saying, that whether these local communities are aware or they know about the issues, I think it is not the matter of knowledge or the matter of cognition. Instead, that is their everyday experience. They are not just knowing, they are also undergoing through the pain of these impacts. They are very much well aware. This knowledge or the information is a kind of thing that we, the people who are sitting in Islamabad or in the big cities, that is a kind of our concern. That is not their concern. That is their, I mean, they are much more informed, and that they are much more knowing about these social and environmental issues because they are facing these issues. If you go to the Bhavejo third village, that village is very much close to the thermal power plant, and you can see the scheduled caste women, how that coal power plant has restricted their physical mobility and has created a kind of privacy issues for the women. In that area, there is no latrine system or the toilet system. Women go for outside, and those thermal power plants, if you see that village on the map, you can see that it is located on the outer side of this coal power plant, and on the fence of that coal power plant, the company has installed big cameras and the flashlights which remain on throughout day and night. And there is serious issues for the women's mobility and the women's privacy issues. So it can be a kind of information and knowledge for me, but the women living over there, they are directly facing those issues. So it's not the matter of knowledge, it's the matter of I think experience. The communities are well experienced in facing that pain. So this social and environmental cost is something I think.
There's another question which perhaps sort of relates to you, which is from Kamran Saab from CAA. He said, do we have any recommendations regarding land acquisition? And he also mentioned that while Ms. Fariha has focused on the health of workers, coal mines also put big claims on land, not only when mines are established, but continued reliance on coal also means expansion of existing mines. Would be interesting to know how we can take that into account.
Regarding the land rights, I think first we need to recognize that it is not only the legal rights which the communities have over certain piece or certain type of land. Instead, the people living in a certain area, they have some sort of say social or customary rights over the land. The government should first recognize those customary rights. We have seen that everywhere in the world. We can see that in India, when we see the situation of the Dalit community, they are landless people, they don't have any legal rights to the land, but they have been living over certain environmental niches or say ecosystems. They have been depending upon those environmental niches for centuries. But whenever there comes some sort of development project, whether it's related to mining or some other development project, those communities are very brutally displaced from that particular piece of land. So I think the first and the foremost recommendation is that their rights should be recognized, whether they have any legal right to land or not. In the case of turf, we see that the culture, or say the common land, common grazing land is not the government land. Legally, that is not the government land. But when the government started acquiring land for mining and thermal power generation purposes, the local communities were given no compensation against gaucher land. So you can understand that they were very much dependent upon that communal land, that common land. So the second recommendation in this regard can be that the status of common land should be made clear, whether they are located in Sindh province or any other province. In Punjab, you can see that there are such kind of lands owned by the forest department. They are called Rak. They are also common lands, are also used for the grazing purposes, but the government doesn't recognize the local communities' rights on those particular piece of land when it starts land acquisition process.
I think thank you so much, Azhar Saab. Ali Saab wants to sort of respond to any of the points. Ji, Ali Saab, you have raised your hand, so if you would like to sort of add on to anything, yes, please.
थैंक यू साहब मैं थोड़ा सा विथ ड्यू रेस्पेक्ट लाशारी साहब के पॉइंट को थोड़ा सा एलाबोरेट करना चाहूँगा। फरमा रहे हैं कि शंघाई इज अ सब क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड। तो माजिद साहब इसको अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं कि सुपर क्रिटिकल और सब क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी में फ़र्क क्या होता है। एक तो वो स्टीम टेम्परेचर का फ़र्क होता है और उसकी एफिशिएंसी का फ़र्क आता है। तो ऐसे नहीं है, हमने सुपर क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी पे, लेकिन ये एडवांस सुपर क्रिटिकल या अल्ट्रा सुपर क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी पे बेस है, तो इसकी एफिशिएंसी भी हाई है जो हम इसको पे करें। बाकियों की एफिशिएंसी 37% है, इसकी एफिशिएंसी 39 से अबो है, 40% एफिशिएंसी है इसकी शंघाई इलेक्ट्रिक की। दूसरा लाशारी साहब ने चैलेंज कर दिया सीपा की मैंडेट को, तो वो फिर बीपा का सेम मैंडेट है बलूचिस्तान में, और पंजाब में पंजाब एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसी है जो सारी इंडस्ट्रीज को और पावर जनरेशन प्रोजेक्ट्स को एनओसी भी देती है और उनको देखती भी है और सारा जो है ना मॉनिटर करती है उनकी एनवायरमेंटल कंडीशन। तो मेरा ख्याल है कि हम गवर्नमेंट के इंस्टीट्यूशंस को चैलेंज कर देंगे तो मुनासिब नहीं है। उनको ही मैंडेट है। अगर इंडिविजुअली जाके कहेगा कि हम अब ये कह देंगे कि जी मैं नेपरा को नहीं मानता, तो मेरे कहने से ये नहीं हो सकेगा कि जी नेपरा को बंद कर दें या उसकी एनालिसिस गलत है, क्योंकि मैं अगर ये कॉमन है सेइंग के नेपरा जो है ना जो गवर्नमेंट कहती है तो वो कर देती है, तो जो भी करती है लेकिन उसको अथॉरिटी है, वो अपने हिसाब से काम कर रही है। तो सिमिलरली सीपा, बीपा, पीपा और ये खैबर पख्तूनख्वा की एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसीज अपने अपने रूल्स रेगुलेशंस और लॉज बना के बैठी हैं और उनको मॉनिटर करती है। वी शुड रिलाई ऑन दोज। तो ये दो कमेंट्स थे मेरे उनके ऊपर। दूसरा ये जो एक लास्ट में कह दूं कि प्राइवेसी का इशू, तो जितनी भी वो डिसलोकेशन हुई है तो उनको कंपनसेट किया है माइनिंग कंपनीज ने, उनको ब्लॉक 2 पे स्पेशली उन्होंने 300 घर बना के दिए हैं उनको और वेल एस्टेब्लिश किया है, उसके साथ उनके एमिनिटीज भी दी हैं। तो ये चीजें हैं। और सिमिलरली ब्लॉक 1 ने भी काफी कंपनसेशन दी है जो इफेक्टेड पीपल हैं ओवर देयर। थैंक यू
Ji, thank you so much, Ali Saab. Just again, before coming to Dr. Majid for his intervention, I think Azhar Saab also wanted to sort of get back to any points. Yes.
Sorry, I think that has become a kind of debate between two people, but I think those people have not been compensated or relocated properly. You should take all the facts into consideration. If we look at those landless communities, those who didn't have any legal right to any piece of land, they were given compensation against the piece of land over which their houses were built. They were not given any livelihood compensation. So you can't say that they were properly compensated. Secondly, the kind of say housing structures which you are referring to are have been built only in the case of new Saridars model village, where the people of Saridars village were relocated. And if you go into that particular model village, you will see the conditions of the miserable condition of the communities who have been relocated over there. The houses have been the houses are in shambles, and secondly, they haven't been compensated against their uh, goucher. And I think goucher is very much important in the social lives of Thari people. If you take away goucher from them and you say that we have constructed houses for them to relocate, that will not be enough for them to for their proper resettlement. So none of the communities who have been displaced from their villages or their ancestral homes, they have been given any compensation against their livelihoods. And in the case of Saridars village, we see that the companies made promises to the local communities that they will give jobs at least to one person from one each household. But practically they employed those people on menial jobs only for 1 or 2 months, and then they dismiss them from their jobs.
Sure. Azhar Sahab, thank you for this point. Let us we can continue this bit, but let me first come to Dr. Majid for his interventions. And perhaps, Dr. Majid, if there is any ongoing research at the USP case that you would also like to highlight. And Basit, I'll request one more question from you after Dr. Majid Sahab. That would again be that if we're again talking about the whole power planning process, is there any space where these social cost or the external cost of these reliance of fossil fuel can sort of be reflected in the either perhaps the pricing structures or the tariff determination process? I don't know, or perhaps any of the gap that needs to perhaps be there. So if you have any suggestions on that, but firstly coming to Dr. Majid for his intervention.
Thank you very much for giving me another chance. So we are actually conducting third coal gasification study so that we can see that how we can promote other technologies with the combustion technologies. So our conclusion was that if we can compare the clean coal technologies, like from the conversion of coal to syngas, and then this gas is converted to use for the power generation. So we have conducted a comparison of 300 megawatt of electricity, and we have make a comparison. We can see that if we can use for combustion technologies, we are using around 250 kilogram per second of the fuel, while we are using 35 kilogram per second of coal is used for the same energy production. On the other hand, if we can see the water water mix, water footprint, around 9 to 11 cubic of water required for running the whole power plant for the combustion technologies. Whether for the IGC's integrated coal gasification technologies required around 4 cubic water required to run this power plant. And then we have seen that the emission profiles are reduced in the combustion, but not is not completely removed from the power systems. But there are certain systems which can be deployed, like carbon capture, but its cost is very high. So what we have calculated around the tariff currently is the local coal around is estimated is around 12 to 13 rupees PKR, while according to the RF reports they have mentioned in that, and the imported coal is around 22 rupees per unit, while in coal gasification is little expensive, which is around 35 to 36 kilowatt per PKR per kilowatt. But if we do a comparison for the fuel consumption, which is much lesser, the water consumption profile is also lesser, and the emission is also required less, but the emissions are not completely removed from the system until we can integrate the carbon capture technologies. But there is only one power plant worldwide is integrated with the carbon capture, and if we have to deploy that system, we have to invest around $1.5 billion. So this is a huge amount to integrate that technology right now, because on the lab scale there are a lot of research has been going on in the carbon capture, but on the industrial scale is not implemented till only one power plant is functional. So thank you very much from them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Majid, for also responding to the questions. Coming to Basit for the last question, and then we'll be sort of concluding very shortly with any further interventions if they are from Ali Saab. Ji, over to you, Basit. Thank you.
Ji, thank you so much, Abed. And to your question, before I get into that, I just wanted to highlight one point I think we were missed when we were talking about repurposing. It's going to have impact on the efficiencies as well. So we are going to see change in efficiencies of these power plant if we repurpose to our local coal. And then also, the moisture content is higher, and then, the other impurities are also higher in local coal. So just to keep that in mind, when we are talking about repurposing, it's not just about the economic case, but you are adding additional environmental cost to it. So now coming over to your question about how we can integrate that into the power sector, probably in terms of costing. I think one usually the way to kind of integrate all these impacts is through mandated policies and different, like for instance, you have resettlement policies, and then you have environmental policies that you have to follow. Globally also, that's one of the key parameters that is being used to control them, because it's very difficult to have accounting of sorts for overall impact of a certain project, right? So if you're taking, let's say, how it impacts the livelihood, so how you're going to cost that into account. So it's very difficult to do that at a scale where you can run through the power sector. So usually it's a mix of different policies that you can bring in, and maybe you want to revisit those policies that you already have in place. And then secondly, regarding the emissions, perhaps, when you're talking about long-term impact and on the climate change, so that's something that's definitely should be part of how we can account for that. But in a current tariff regime, that's not possible. But with new upcoming transition to electricity market, CTBCM, that does open a route where we can actually account for carbon markets or carbon footprint of the overall market system, because you are tracking where exactly the electricity is being bought and where it is being supplied. So it's easier to track that way. So I think that transition will allow us to kind of integrate the cost pertaining to, let's say, a unit of carbon dioxide being produced or an equivalent unit of carbon dioxide being produced into the system. So I think that's being said. Nevertheless, if you're talking about the other impacts and how you control these through the policies, one key thing I think is required based on what I've been listening to Azhar Saab and different panelists is there's no, because I see there's a bit of a debate about what exists and what doesn't exist within the region and the effectivity of those. So honestly, I feel like this is somewhere where someone who is consistently monitoring the impacts from the public authorities should be the right person to kind of get into the details of what actually the impact is on the ground. So what I'm feeling here is that we don't have enough proper monitoring mechanisms, perhaps, about whatever the resettlement has taken place, whether it was effective or not, whether the mining people, how they have been, their current issues, whether they have been treated or not, whether they are being listened to, not they have access or not. So getting that right monitoring and evaluation framework and getting it being accessible to the local communities there, I think that is something that should definitely be one of the key outcomes, out of this whole Eric policy webinar that we have. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Basit. So yes, we just left with 1 minute. I hope there, if we have any quick questions from anyone, but I believe most of them have been addressed. So let's once again, thank you so much for this discussion. We are SDPI is very close in developing this model that sort of includes what are the social costs of these external costs. But initially, firstly, our focus has been on the transportation side of the things, and we'll be able to share some of the findings of our financial model with you, hopefully very soon as well. So again, let me just again request if anyone has any further last points to sort of add. Ali Saab, if you want to sort of add on to any points, and then we'll sort of conclude the discussion.
Thank you, Abhay Saab. Ms. Faria ने एक recommendation दे दी कि wind or solar, जो ना foreign उसको that should be included in our basket. We do support renewables as I said earlier, that we are going to increase the inner share of renewables up to 60%. But what is the problem with the renewables? There is a problem of intermittency. We need to make our grid reliable and stable. For stability of the system, we need some base load. In case we rely on 100% on renewable solar or wind, then our system will definitely repeatedly collapse. So in order to avoid such collapses, we need some base load. For power plants, either we have to rely on coal, RLNG, or RFO, or even nuclear plants. Solar is sometimes is giving 100 megawatt, and after few seconds it gives 2 megawatt or so. If 100 megawatt plant is installed over there, similar is the case with the solar power plant, and same is the case with the hydro as well. So for baseload power plants, definitely we have to rely on our own resources. The rest of the other resources are based on imported fuels. So we do have our own resource keeping idle in our country, that is charcoal. So not only we use it in power generation, but now in the next phase, we are going to convert coal to liquid and then coal to gas as well. Because next vulnerable sector is fertilizer, because we don't have enough gas to run our fertilizer plants. So definitely government is working on it to convert coal, charcoal to gas. And that gas would be utilized in fertilizer plants, textile plants, and other sectors. And in this way, we not only save our foreign exchange, but we will make our industry as well
Yes.
economy
Yes.
bring on the track. We'll bring it on the
Thank
track.
you. Thank you. G. Basit, you have your hand up. Yeah. If you do you like to? So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just quickly, with respect, Ari Saab, so just wanted to क्योंकि discuss यही हो रहा होता है मैं अक्सर we have this discussions and we often come down to we need these plants for the base load and all that. देखिए let's see, right? One thing is that हमारे जो thermal plants हैं उनकी जो total capacity है वो 30 gigs के करीब है, ठीक है? And our peak demand goes up to 31 and 32 gigs at one time a summer. So पहली चीज तो ये कि हम एक we need to have this kind of a clarity के how much base load plants do we actually need. फिर we are talking about these power plants at base load जबकि these are far away from the down centers and then from the demand centers in the central part of the Punjab, and then there's a lot of grid constraints, and फिर हम इन्हीं plants को जो होते हैं वो चला भी नहीं रहे होते because we say कि हमारे पास grid enough नहीं है. So is it a base load if there are grid constraints? और फिर ये जो बात हो ना कि हमारे पास सोलर एंड विंड मजीद इंटीग्रेट अभी नहीं हो सकती एंड बेस लोड इज एन इशू एज ऑफ राइट नाउ. देखिए सोलर एंड विंड अभी करंटली हमारे पास कैपेसिटी अबाउट 4% है, एंड अगर मैं 6% है और 4% बाई जनरेशन है, ठीक है? This is not something जहाँ पे हमें base load becomes a critical issue. We have अभी just a week before we had negative pricing in most of the countries in Europe for electricity market prices. They were 100% working on solar and wind. वहाँ पे base load कहाँ था? So I think we are still kind of into that area where we want to run the power sector out how it used to be in 1980s. We don't realize that how the new progressive power system works, where you ultimately the world is moving towards using these plants as flexibly as a peaking plants, not as a base load plants. I mean, that's what it is being used in Germany and the other countries as well. So I think we need to kind of have a very rigorous analysis regarding when we say that we need base load and we can't have more solar and thermal right now because that comes with the intermittent variability. I think there needs to be a very strong backing evidence to it, because आपकी जो World Bank की study है that shows about 14% integration is possible in the current rig. आप 6% है, let's just add 10% more and then we can figure out whether base load and such kind of issues are are at the parity of not. So just wanted to highlight that because I think personally base load is an argument that we have, but we don't have any evidence and backing for it. Why do we need it? Just wanted to point out.
True. Thank you, Basit. I think we'll be ending this with last comment because Ali Saab has raised his hand, and we sort of have to get just one last comment from your end, and we'll be concluding the discussion. So fully understand that this is something that is addressable, and we can assure you that in the next even we'll do come up with some of these numbers as well. But yes, please, your last comments, please.
सर लास्ट कमेंट वोरी साहब सही फरमा रहे हैं, लेकिन पूरी दुनिया में रिसेंटली मैंने भी इंग्लैंड विजिट करके आया, तो ऐसे नहीं है कि सोलर और विंड, वहां पे भी पंप स्टोरेज है, बैटरी स्टोरेज है, और इवन कोल के जहां पे भी है, यूएसए में, यूके में और जर्मनी में, हर जगह में एज ऑफ टुडे वो बेस लोड पे या उसको पिकिंग करें या कंपनसेटर करें, ताकि जैसे ही हमारी फ्रीक्वेंसी अप्स डाउन्स आते हैं तो उनको कुछ ना कुछ करना पड़ता है, तो वहां पे वो गैस टर्बाइंस को कंपनसेटर के तौर पे इस्तेमाल करते हैं, या पंप स्टोरेज उनके पास होता है। अदरवाइज बैटरी स्टोरेज सिस्टम भी है, जो यूके में अभी भी उनके 600 मेगावाट के बैटरी स्टोरेज लगे हुए हैं, वो फौरन टेक ओवर कर लेती है जैसे ही ड्रॉप आता है विंड में या सोलर एनर्जी में। तो डेफिनेटली हमारे पास बेस लोड या ये वाले पंप स्टोरेज तो है नहीं हमारे पास, कुछ ना कुछ तो चाहिए, और हमें रिलाय करना है अपने लोकल रिसोर्सेज पे। तो बस यही है कि हमें कोई ना कोई सोचना पड़ेगा कि बजाय कि हम इंपोर्टेड फ्यूल और इंपोर्टेड टेक्नोलॉजीज को यूज करें, आई वुड सजेस्ट कि हम वी शुड रिलाई ऑन आवर ओन रिसोर्सेज। Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Completely agree. Just saying कि solar and wind भी हमारी local resources हैं,
Well, thank
वो
you.
बाहर से हम import नहीं करते. Thank you जी.
Both of them are local resources, and let's sort of come up with the plan. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, starting from Alinawas Saab. It was very important to have the government perspective, and also at the same time, thank you for listening to the concerns of the civil society as well, of the think tanks as well, because again, the whole point is that even you, Renewables First, Pride, NERST, SDP, and all, we do have very common goal, that is a just transition and the local community development of Pakistan. That is something we all have. We fully understand that definitely government has its priorities, government has its own, different organizations have its mandate, and also again on many fronts we can definitely, the debate has to be there of what makes an economical case, what makes a more strong technical case, and fully all of the views are respected and fully understand. Will be going forward, hopefully let's see if we can collectively come up with a solution which can be put forward. And like, once again, thank you so much to all of our experts sitting over here as well, especially Dr. Majid, a very good perspective coming in from academia, and we really look forward to, once your study on the coal gasification is out, if the numbers do sort of support the evidence that perhaps the coal gasification is going to make either an economic and environmental case as well. Definitely, Azhar Saab, in collaboration with Pride, SDPI is again doing that study that is sort of addressing the whole external cost and coming up with those numbers that we can actually again definitely talk about. Ms. Fariha also sort of very highlighted a lot of very good points, especially we fully understand how the reliance towards renewables, especially because when we're talking in the bigger context of industrial decarbonization, greening of the grid, the renewables make a good, very strong case. Especially we don't have to go towards renewables just because they're environmental friendly. We have to go towards them perhaps also because they make a much stronger economic case over the long run as well. And definitely thank you so much, Basit and all of the speakers here as well. They have wonderfully highlighted their interventions, and I believe Renewables First has also come up with some very strong studies. There are very strong models as well that sort of highlight these things. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We'll get back to you with the proceedings and some of the, we have noted down a lot of the key policy recommendations, which will be sending to all the relevant stakeholders from this discussion as well. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, both in person as well as online. Thank you, Ji. Da Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Thank you, Ji.